Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another video. I can't believe it's Wednesday already. We are halfway through the week towards the Champions League final. It is very real. It is very nerve-wracking. It is very terrifying. And there's a little old mighty opposition of Inter ahead of us. So I thought today I'd get someone in who knows a damn sight more about Italian football and just general football than me. Jack's joined me. Jack Collins from Ranks FC. Jack, how you doing, mate? You good?
I'm very good, mate. Thank you for having me back on the channel. I very much appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure, man. Always. To be honest, I ever think I need some genuinely reliable football opinions from just football in general. It's pretty much you because I know you're I'd say would be a football enthusiast. You're basically I think you're like the Conference League and the Europa League's biggest fan. Am I right when I'm saying that? I feel like that's your niche.
Yeah,
Like you're just always pounding the door for those competitions.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love the little bits. It's all good. It's lots of fun, eh?
It is indeed, man. It does indeed. So, Jack, today I thought I'd kind of get some of your takes on Inter Milan, if that's okay. Because, though, is it actually Inter Milan or not? Like, I know there's a bit of debate about what they prefer to be called. Google says Inter Milan, but then it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know what Jamie Carragher called it, Internazionale. I don't know how he pronounced it. I can't remember.
I just tend to go with Inter. It keeps things easier.
Yeah, it really does. Right, so we'll start initially, like, on the top line thing, how has Inter's season been so far? You know, because they reached the Champions League final, which has been incredibly impressive. But I think it's fair to say, you know, they weren't really pushing Napoli at any point. They finished at 18 points behind in third place, so it's not a terrible season by any stretch. But obviously they weren't up there in the title race. Was this a good league campaign for Inter? And what was the expectations going into it for them?
I mean, I think they were expected to challenge. Obviously, they won the league 2 seasons ago, and last year they pushed Milan all the way to the final day. And so I think there was an expectation that this was a side that would once again challenge at the sharp end.
Yeah.
Obviously, that hasn't come to pass. And there was talk in sort of January time, a little bit before that, December, just around the World Cup, that Inzaghi might lose his job. But I think what's happened since is, one, they've become far more consistent in terms of the league. They were too far off Napoli already by that point to genuinely challenge, but they've become consistent in that regard. But they've also then gone and won the Supercoppa, and they've won the Coppa Italia, and they've got to the Champions League final. And it's kind of cemented Inzaghi's reputation as a cup specialist. Now, there are certain managers who thrive in these situations. We know that. But he has a reputation for being able to win these one-off, two-legged knockout games, whatever, you know, however it kind of works in the scheduling. And I think it's really resurrected his standing within not just the Inter fan base, but also I think the Italian community as a whole. And this is not new. Inzaghi's, you know, trophy cabinet as a manager is very impressive. For someone who's, you know, really only won one league title in Serie A, he's picked up a lot of silverware. He did it at Lazio, where he won the Coppa Italia. He's now done it again at Inter. They just seem to hoover up trophies. Yeah. And, you know, no matter who gets where and who does what, and Napoli have been phenomenal in Serie A this year. And yet it's been Inter that have gone all the way to, you know, the Coppa final and won it. It's been Inter who have the one who have sailed their way to the Champions League final. And I think this kind of reputation has become well earned, if I'm honest. So not a great season, I would say, in terms of their league form, but it's been put aside by the fact that they've been able to win 2 more trophies and get to a Champions League final. And so overall, kind of holistically, I think most Inter fans will look back at this as a good season, as a good campaign.
Yeah, I mean, silverware is never, ever to be sniffed at. It doesn't matter who you are. I mean, that they'll be happy with that because ultimately that's pretty much all that matters. And that Champions League final, well, they are there on merit, of course. How was their their Champions League form and their route to this? Because of course they beat Milan, to get there. Have they? I don't. To be honest, I don't know that. I don't know their group form. Were they comfortable getting through to this stage, or was it a bit of a toil for them?
It was a strange one because they were in a really difficult group.
Yeah, I can't remember. I'm going to check now.
Into a group with Bayern Munich and Barcelona.
Oh God, yeah, they did, didn't they?
Victoria Plzeňa, who we must not forget. They lost both times, home and away to Bayern 2-0. But it was kind of sealed by group stage, the game 4 in the group stage, which is a weird thing in a group of that much quality. Now, Barcelona fans will point to them and say, oh, they were lucky, or we were missing a couple of key players. Fine, whatever. You still got to beat them.
Yeah.
And the two results against Barcelona, the 1-0 at San Siro, and then the 3-all in Barcelona, I think was the key one. And you kind of looked at it, Barcelona went into the lead, then Inter took a 3-1 lead, and then suddenly Barcelona came roaring back right at the end, but they didn't have enough time, to be perfectly honest with you, to get this over the line. And by the time that result came in, it was basically like, wow, Barcelona were like, oh, we need Victoria Plzeňa to do us a favor and beat Inter, or there's no way that we're going to be able to get through this group. And that was ultimately what happened. So for a group of that difficulty to come through it and be pretty much qualified by match day 4, impressive. I think in so many ways. They haven't been perfect, but they have stood up in the big games. They stood up in that big game against Barcelona, and it was big performances from the likes of Çalhanoğlu and Barella, the ones that really kind of saw this out. And I think those are players that we'll come on to and we'll talk about a little bit more. But their knockout stages have been very impressive. They have conceded 3 goals in the knockout stages, which is fine, but you have to put them in the context. They beat Porto 1-0 at home. They went to the Dragao, which is an unbelievably difficult place to go in Europe, and drew 0-0 in order to see out that 1-0 win. They beat Benfica 2-0 away, and Benfica were absolutely flying at that point. And then there was this crazy 3-all draw where they never looked like being out of control of the tie. And then obviously we saw the semi-final against Milan. And I think what's really impressive about the semi-final is that Milan Inter in a Derby della Madonnina in a Champions League semi-final, the emotional pressure sitting on that. Now Inter were favourites. They're a better team than Milan this year, and Rafael Leao was obviously out for the first leg. So fine, there are caveats. But the emotional pressure of going, right, do you want to be the team that goes down in history as losing a Champions League semi-final Milan derby?
Horrible.
And the way that they managed those 2 games, and the way that they were just in control for all of it, I was really, really impressed.
They deserved it, didn't they? Absolutely deserved it.
The most impressive performance, I think, of Inter season so far.
So, on their performances, I can genuinely admit I have a knowledge gap with this stuff. How is it they line up? What is the style of football that they play typically?
So they play in a 3-5-2 or a 5-3-2, which I imagine it will be more of in this final. They are very happy without the ball. And this is going to be an interesting dynamic. And, you look at the way that this side lines up. They will play with 3 centre-backs who are not going walking. These are centre-backs who are set up to play centre-back. And when it kind of comes to what you're expecting from them, they will be compact. They will be tucked back. They are going to sit deep. They are happy to defend on the edge of their own box with 8 outfield players sitting there. It'll be the 2 wide players will drop into the areas to try and track wingers. And then you get this kind of Darmian Acerbi, who's been brilliant this season, Bastoni as the back 3 who are just going to go, right, we live here. And Barella, Çalhanoğlu, who's sort of been reinvented as a number 6 and is keeping Marcelo Brozovic out of the team, and Mkhitaryan, who's fitness depending, in front of them. And they will sit there and block off those passing lanes. So this is not a team that are going to, necessarily worry about the fact that City are going to dominate the ball. Yeah. They are not going to stress about the fact that they will have 25-30% possession in this game. What they will do is look to bypass that kind of press that City have. And I think what we saw in the Real Madrid game, which was, I think, the most impressive thing about it, was that Madrid couldn't not get out of their own half. They couldn't get out of their own third. The shield that you have of Rodri and Stones stepping up and winning those second balls, taking the ball off the midfielders, incredible. And one of the best performances I think I've ever seen on a football pitch. So let's be clear about this. Inter come into this as underdogs, and rightly so, because this City side are the best team as far as I'm concerned on the planet. And I'm not saying that because I'm on a City. You're not on a City channel.
I'll take it, Jack.
I genuinely believe that. It's fine. So, what I think Inter will do, which Real Madrid really didn't, was they are just going to absolutely bypass what you will try and do in those areas. Onana is a wonderful, wonderful distributor of the ball, and he's going to look to nick it over and hit Edin Dzeko on the halfway line. You're more than aware of what Edin Dzeko can do.
I love him.
He will sit there. He's more than happy to receive the ball in, but he's going to be a problem. And I think that one of the big battles in this entire day is how much joy can Edin Dzeko get in terms of getting the ball straight from the goalkeeper and actually bringing into this game? Because if they can't do that, if Ruben Dias just absolutely overwhelms him in the middle, then I think that Inter are in trouble. But I have faith, as I imagine you do, in Dzeko's ability to actually win these balls, to get those knockdowns, and to try and get Inter into those attacking phases. And that's, I think, going to be the really interesting thing. There's not going to be that ball for Rodri and Stones to win in the middle of the park as much as there was in the Real Madrid game, because Real Madrid didn't have a plan B. Inter's plan A is go to Dzeko. It's not plan B. This is what the way they, this is how the way.
So
they're
they're incredibly direct, basically.
And then that releases everyone else. Yeah. It's simple, but it works.
Oh, well, obviously, I mean, the proof is in the pudding, and that pudding's the Champions League final, which is that's part of I've ever said in my life, but it's genuinely true. I mean, that's where they are, and they deserve it. So is Martinez sort of play off Dzeko then? It's sort of looking for like the knockdowns and whatever, like, which is obviously I wouldn't really put him as a classic knockdown kind of striker, but is that his role in this team?
He's very much. This is very much a big man, little man partnership, right? Like this, it's very old school.
I love that. It's so actually, it's so 90s, isn't it? I love it. It's brilliant.
Yeah, and look, Dzeko is the person to win those balls. He will feed Lautaro straight away. It's not necessarily knockdowns as in running on behind, although they can do that. He'll try and win the ball, Dzeko to feet, knock it off to Martinez, and Martinez will then bring Barella, Mkhitaryan, the two wing backs who will start to get forward at that point into play. And that's where the kind of creative juices start flowing. And so Dzeko is the focal point, and that bit's quite old school. But from there, it becomes a very interesting transitional kind of attack, I think. And the way that Martinez will then get his head up, get forward, like to bring the others into play. DeMarco will steam forward down the left. Dumfries thinks he's a number 9 down the right. So you got to deal with that kind of issue at times. But then, Barella, I think, is Inter's best player. I think he is the heartbeat of this side. And it's him, if he gets into those spaces, if he starts to pick up the ball in dangerous areas, that's where I think Inter can start to cause City problems.
Can you tell us a little bit more about Barella then, for those who are not familiar with him? What's his style, in general? Is he bit of a box-to-box midfielder, or more creative, more defensive?
Yeah, he's a bit of everything. I think he's genuinely one of the best midfielders on the planet.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
And I don't say that lightly. He's absolutely sensational. He's a bit of everything. As you say, he is a box-to-box midfielder. He has all of that energy, but when he gets into the final third, he has the poise and the vision to be able to pull things out. And I think you look at something like the Coppa Italia final, where Inter beat Fiorentina 2-1, and it's an interesting kind of general game to look at, because Inter were the inferior team for 75 minutes of that Coppa final, and they won 2-1. And it came about because of 2 moments of magic from Lautaro Martinez. But the second goal, all the praise is going to Lautaro, and right so, because it's a wonderful finish. But it comes about because the ball falls to Barella on the edge of the box, and he has the kind of wherewithal to stop, take a look up, find the pass, evade a defender, and then lay it off for Martinez to actually put together a wonderful finish. So what Barella does is he will create and define and score goals in the final third. He's equally happy tracking back, making tackles, and working hard on the edge of his own box. And I think for me, that kind of roundedness is why I say that someone like Bernardo Silva could walk into any team in the world.
Yeah,
I think very similar of Barella.
I know he's been linked to City, actually, Barella, at times, and I know a lot of people who are watching this video right now, for example, are saying Barella would be a very good replacement if Bernardo was to move on. I know they're different players, but that same sort of versatility, a wonderful player. And as a City fan, I am looking at the fact that there's ex-United players there, and then there's a Manchester City forward, ex-Man City forward, and you can't think, oh God, football loves a narrative, doesn't it, Jack? It really does, and I don't know how it does it or why it does it. But to be honest, I wasn't aware that Darmian's a centre back now, because he was a right back at one point, wasn't he? He's when is it been? He was a right back, wasn't he? Have I made that up? I swear he was.
Yeah, no, he very much was, and also he still plays right wing back at times. He's done really well in this Champions League campaign at right centre back, but it was a bit of a shock to everybody when he started playing there. Everyone was like, "What?"
Yeah,
we couldn't work out what they were doing. Have they changed formation? What's going on here when the lineups came out? But he's worked really well there. He works really well with Acerbi. He gives him a little bit more legs for cover. And also he links really well and kind of covers the defensive vulnerabilities I think that Dumfries has. So yeah, fair play to him. He's reinvented himself this season.
Yeah, it looks like they've got a pretty set lineup, doesn't it? Because I'm going through some of the the big games, and it looked like you sort of tell what it's going to be. Like on screen right now, for example, I've got the 2-0 up against Milan. And it's pretty much everything you mentioned: Dzeko, Martinez, Mkhitaryan. That same midfield three, then Dumfries and Dimarco, then Sherby, Bastoni, Darmian, and Nana. It's basically that, isn't it? Is that pretty much the team that they'll probably choose?
Yeah, I think so. The one question is about the fitness of Henrik Mkhitaryan. He's not been quite there. He's missed the last couple of games. If that happens, Calhanoglu will drift out to that kind of left 8 role, and Marcelo Brozovic will come in as a 6.
That's not a bad replacement.
Not a bad replacement. As replacements go.
He's a good player. So what is it that you think City need to do to beat this side? Is it pretty much same as per usual, or would you think Pep would try anything slightly different? Because as you said, there's probably not many teams in the Premier League that play like Inter. I'm not sure there is really. That's an interesting question. Would you say there's a closest comparison to anyone in the Premier League to this Inter side?
You're not going to like this answer.
You're going to say Brentford?
They play a bit like Brentford.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. And Brentford are good.
Think about it. That kind of flick on. And look, I mean, obviously, as a Fulham fan, I should probably declare interest that I like to see Brentford fail, and they unfortunately have not done that. So that is where it is. But I think there is something that Brentford have this idea. I think within the wider British public, within the media as well, that they play really nice, pretty football. They don't.
No, they don't. You're right.
They're really effective. They play long ball football and it's very direct, and that's not me slagging them off. Yeah, it genuinely is.
Classic Fulham
incredibly
fan.
Effective, and it works. Yeah, exactly. But they go long to Ivan Toney a lot. He brings other people into play. They look to flick on and Bremo and Vissa down the wings and bring the wing backs in. That's how Brentford operate. And Inter aren't a million miles from that. And actually, the kind of ability of Onana probably lines up quite nicely with the distribution of someone like David Raya, who's able to actually reach those things. So I would say, obviously, they are better than that, but that is probably the easiest stylistic comparison to make.
A better Brentford.
But in terms of what City need to do, it's quite a daunting prospect, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm looking at the stats last time when we lost.
We
had 30 shots last time when we lost to them, but then obviously it's a very different City side, though, isn't it? To be fair, but go on, you were saying.
Yeah, exactly. It was rotated, right? So I think actually maybe the game at the Etihad is probably a better kind of draw comparison, if you will. But if you kind of look at the way that City set up, and I was thinking about this earlier because my friend and colleague Sam Ty has just done a video on Tifo about how Inter can stop City. And there was a lot of comments on it saying, oh, where's the video saying how City can stop Inter? I was like, there doesn't need to be a video about how City can stop Inter. That's what happens when you are top of the pile favourites of everything. You go into every game where people expect to win. Now, obviously, football doesn't work like that. But there doesn't need to be a video of how City should stop it. If City can get their game plan working, then they should win this game. I think there are some really key individual battles that City need to win. I think Ruben Dias needs to win his individual battle with Edin Dzeko. And I really think that Rodri needs to win his battle with Barella. And if those two things happen and they can't get going, then I think City will win this game. If those two start to have joy and have fun, then this will get a little bit nasty, is probably how I'd put it. The other one to just watch out for, and we talked about people clipping it long and making those long balls. Bastoni's passing range is ludicrous. But absolutely,
brilliant footballer.
I'm talking Bonucci from years back, right?
Pep would love him, wouldn't he? Pep would really like him, I think.
Pep would love him. I think he's wonderful. But just another one to keep an eye on in terms of just the way that Inter will look to distribute. If he has the ball on the edge of the box, he's going to be looking cross-field for the wing back bombing onwards or trying to get it into Dzeko's chest to bring Inter up the pitch.
So the Brentford thing has me shook. I'm not gonna lie, but it's one of those things where. But then ultimately, that's when we lost from 2-1. Early on in the season, it was a very different City side. This was a City side that contained Cancelo, and we were still playing more of the 4-3-3 thing. We hadn't really reinvented the system yet, and it was pre-World Cup. It was a different time, and. And then of course, then there was also the last game of the season where we lost, but that was a weird game. No, it doesn't count. I think you're right. The other thing is, I do think Diaz will revel it with Dzeko. I think that's very much Diaz wants that. Diaz wants a battle physically. I know Ivan Toney had a good game against Diaz last time, but Dzeko is not quite as he's not as sharp as he used to be. He's a bit older, isn't he? He hasn't really got the pace to get away from anyone if needs be. I know it's not about that, but he's very experienced, admittedly. But I do think Diaz will be. I think he'll handle it. I think he'll be up for it. Rodri and Barella is a fascinating one because they're good enough to be teammates. Those two, in terms of they are that high level, aren't they? I can't wait, Jack. It's going to be fascinating, mate. I've got a feeling it could be. This is my feeling. It could be a really ugly game. like a very, from my perspective as a City fan, I feel like it could be just frustrating, very frustrating. They are going to be really up for this, aren't they? I know it sounds really obvious, but they are, as you said, their biggest, probably their biggest attribute in this game is that they are not scared to not have the ball, are they? They will be totally fine, just frustrating the life out of City.
Also, they're grizzled, and that's not always a good thing. But they are veterans of getting to cup finals now. This Inzaghi side, and just getting over the line. And I think that's it's not necessarily something that City don't have, and I'm not suggesting it's in contrast, because I think we've seen this City side now win so many finals that they are able to do this, and so it's not necessarily, but they have that capacity to win when they're not the best team. They have that capacity to win when things get ugly, and I think that makes it a more entertaining contest, because the mad thing is that if this game was over 2 legs, I'd be backing you to beat them by 4 or 5. But it's not, and that's why this is uncomfortable, and why these games are so tense and tight, and amazing. It's actually ultimately what gives them their real kind of moments of joy. But this side, this inside, they know how to win ugly. They know how to play ugly. They'll want the game broken down. They'll want it, they will not want City in their rhythm, and it's going to make it, I think, frustrating for City fans. But I do think that at the very end of the day, quality will out here.
I absolutely hope you're right, mate. I really do. Jack, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. Where can people find you, by the way? If you're on Ranks FC and so on, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. We're on Ranks FC. If you're looking for a podcast, just sort of a more general football podcast, we'd love to have you listen. We've got a full Champions League preview episode dropping tomorrow morning, so we'd love you to come and have a listen over there. Just search Ranks FC on any podcast provider, or here on YouTube as well. I
would recommend it, because Sam and Dean are both wonderful gents as well that have been on videos before. They're both top, of course, alongside Jack here as well. Jack, thank you so much, mate. You're an absolute superstar. I'm less confident I was beforehand, but that is the nature of the Champions League final. You've been wonderful, guys. Thanks for watching this video. Do let me know down in the comments what you make of this game, how you expect Inter to play, and so on, and how you're feeling about the game. For now, though, have a wonderful day. Don't forget to give this video a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll catch you very, very soon. Goodbye. Cheers.